Hello, this is Terry Cole, and this is video 6 in our Becoming a Permission Set Based Admin series. And this is the video where I talk about bigger jobs to be done by the permission set admin. And I want you to notice that so far I have not talked about migrating profiles to or permission sets at all. Perhaps Cheryl and her team will eventually deliver a tool that I trust and believe is the right way to migrate, but I have not talked about that at all. I don't have plans as of yet in my org. What I have are plans to enhance and improve our org, and they are built on permission sets. But all our old capability continues to be based on our profiles and will probably stay there until they either have to be migrated or are automatically migrated to something in the future. So I think it's an important thing to look at avoiding the expense of spinning your wheels and instead look at the big jobs that will add value in your org around permission sets. So I'm just going to give you some examples. We have a volunteer who proofreads. We call them our publicity volunteer, but it doesn't really matter. They proofread a lot of things, therefore they need access to a lot of objects that are in a lot of different apps, Salesforce templates and Pardot templates, some custom objects that describe things that we're doing in our programs, some custom objects that are captions of pictures, some custom objects that are descriptions of inventory, and even more than this. They're all appearing on our web once the object has been enabled and some criteria set up in the fields. It can appear on our website, and so they need to be proofread. And so we have that, and actually I'm going to show you how that's built a little bit right now. Let me get rid of the talking head here. So this is the permission set group for our volunteer publication editor. And what I'm showing you are the permission sets in that group. And so we have a permission set that makes him a member of our Experience Cloud. And that's a strange way to go about it, but it's the only way we can do it without assigning him directly. We have a permission set called Working Flow Apex Controllers. Explained that earlier. So he gets that because he needs to run some flows. He has a Working with Programs because we have some program descriptions that end up getting on the web. But he does not need everything. So when we assigned this into this permission set group, we have muted out a lot of the program object capabilities and fields. Working with email templates is a permission set we defined for him. Everybody else gets their email template access through the profile somehow, but he did not have access. So we added this permission set so that this volunteer has access to proofread email templates. Working with inventory items. And again, he doesn't need everything, so we should have muted, but we haven't yet muted his access. He actually can update inventory items like an intern or a program staff member can, and he shouldn't be. He needs to be able to change the title if we've made a typo or change the description, but he does not need to change how many we have. And if we would like to reduce that, it is actually a simple job now to do that. And all we're going to do is mute access to certain inventory update fields from his permission set group. We don't have to change the working with inventory permission set, which everyone has in our org now. And so we know that only he is going to change because we're going to only mute it in this volunteer proofreading permission set. And so that's a really nice thing. If we keep going, we have a custom object called Manage Content that represents our blog articles, if you will. We adopted it long before CRM was around. And so he needs access to that, and he pretty much gets all the field access, but we don't want him, and he can even create those, we just don't want him deleting objects. So we mute his ability to delete. in this permission set group. He works with sim events, which is what all of our program staff members do. But there's a whole bunch of things he should not be able to. He should not see, who attended the events. He should not be able to delete or add events. He shouldn't be able to change the type of event and all sorts of things. So we have muted his capability, even though he works with sim events the same as all other staff members. And then we all work with this picture object called SharonPix, and he gets that capability. So this is a bigger job. We wanted to add him and not over provision him because he's outside our organization, and it would be a absolute violation of our data privacy governance policies to give him access to all these things. But we wanted to bring him on as a logon licensed user, and so we were able to create this permission set and create these working with profiles that are wide open and then are muted down for this permission set and can be muted down for this permission set group and can be muted down for other permission set groups where different types of access are required. So we define the basic object and its field or collection of objects in our case within all the fields. We define that at one time, and then we mute down access for different types of permission set groups, and those get amalgamated then into the user. And it's working really well this way for us. So that's an example of a larger job to be done, and yet it actually was far less than creating a new profile and trying to get all of the stuff on it that we would need on it. Or trying to copy the base profile and then attempt to remove everything that we think he doesn't need. It was much easier to start from scratch and build up what he needed using these reusable working with permission sets. So the first example was of restricting his access to some fields he doesn't need. That's a very simple job. The second one would be building something, brand new. And I kind of walked you through what that's like. You start with a profile, and that profile is called a minimum profile. This idea came up several years ago, and Salesforce delivered something called a minimum profile. However, unless you knew what it was, you've been adding permissions to it every time you define new objects and new fields. And so it is no longer, it is in fact highly polluted with all kinds of access in all likelihood. You can use the AI summarizer to see what type of permissions you have given this minimal profile, but it's not minimal anymore. However, there is a YouTube video that shows how to build a minimal profile very simply using Workbench. All you do is give it a name and save, and now you truly have a minimum profile. Minimum profiles do have to have a few capabilities defined in them. You have to define a default record type for any objects that use record types. You have to define an app. We have used the Chatter app as our default app. You can't turn it off apparently, but you have to have an app defined by default or things will fail. So you have to start with this minimum profile when you want to start relying only on permission set groups instead of profiles. And then you give the user that minimum profile, and then everything that they get access to comes from the permission set group, or in a few cases, directly assigned permission sets. So here's another common example of a larger task to be done in a nonprofit. It is quite common that a nonprofit started out using Salesforce for fundraising. And so people have access to donation records and donation amounts and donation dates and all kinds of donor records. Very common. And as you have added new capability, the volunteer manager probably also has access to those fundraising data. And as you added more capability, the program team that works with clients probably also has access to the fundraising data. And this isn't ideal. It's over provisioning in a big way. And so, and that's true in our org, for example. So we are going to restrict permissions of some profiles. In particular, we're going to define working with donor summary information and working with donor records as two different permission sets, because we do want our volunteer managers to see that the person in front of them is a donor, and maybe even whether they're a big donor or a new donor or whatever. But we don't want them to have access to the donor records, and so those will be two separate permission sets, and we'll create a permission set group for the two functions, and we'll assign the different users onto that permission set group, and then we will go into our profile and we will delete access to donor data through profiles. And so that will remove access to the profile, and users will only retain what they get through a permission set group. And this is a very seamless transition. Everything else will stay the same on the profile. So we haven't messed up our volunteer management, our program management, or anything else. All we've done is we've stricken donor information access from profiles and moved it to two permission set groups that clearly make access available for summaries and donor records. And this will be a very well contained project. It's a big project, but it's a well-contained project with minimal risk. Let's see. I think I have talked through everything I need to talk through about these larger jobs. Basically, the message is you're going to start discovering that when you're a permission set based admin, you're going to begin architecting your permission sets and your permission set groups. And you're going to start over time making some modifications, typically deletions, to your existing profiles. Perhaps in 2026, Salesforce will give us a nice tool that will move everything off of the profiles onto a permission set, but that's kind of like doing a one-for-one migration of work set rules to flows. It's not that great an idea, or a one-to-one migration of process builder to flows. It's not that great an idea. You really need to re-examine what would be best given your future needs. And everything I've talked about is building stronger organizations, not reworking the same organization for the same features. I think that is a waste of the admin's time and should not be done until it's required and or being replaced because you're improving it in some way other than just for the goodness of moving from profiles to permission set groups. So that's what I have to say in number 6. The last video in this series will be short, and it's things that I have learned that I cannot do with permission sets. And in all likelihood, this last video will no longer be valid as soon as they make additional changes. But I'll see you in 7. Thanks for watching. I hope you have a lot of fun planning your larger tasks once you have grown the muscle and chops to be confident as a permission set based admin.